Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with baked Reuben dip. That's right, you know what they say. If it makes a great sandwich, it'll make a great dip. Well, actually, they didn't say that. I said that. But I really do believe it to be true, especially when it comes to the venerable Reuben sandwich. Plus, the big game is right around the corner, so I wanted to show you a nice hot baked dip with which to make the people that brought cold dips feel inadequate. I'm looking at you, Mr. Cauliflower Hummus. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the meat. So for this, we're going to need 1 pound of sliced corned beef, or in my case, pastrami. All right, corned beef is more traditional, and I believe the original Reuben meat. But personally, I do prefer the extra flavor that the pastrami provides. So obviously, that'll be up to you. You're the freak nasty of the dip. So you pick, but you can't really go wrong with either choice. But regardless of which one you use, we're going to prep it the same way. We'll just wad up a bunch of slices and cut it across one way, and then turn it and cut it across the other into, about 1-inch pieces. And by the way, I mentioned we're using a pound of meat here, which is literally twice as much that's called for in your leading internet recipes for this. And I only mention that to brag. But also, if you want at your party, you could describe this as high protein, okay? And then once our meat's chopped up, we will add that to a bowl containing the base for almost every hot baked dip, cream cheese. And please use the real stuff. I don't want you using that reduced fat stuff. And if you do, trust me, I'll hear about it. So we'll add our meat to a half pound of cream cheese, at which point we can introduce our sauerkraut, which has been drained, rinsed, and squeezed very thoroughly to remove any excess moisture. You see how that sauerkraut looks dry? That's because it's not wet. So you really do want to squeeze out any excess water, because you don't want that in your dip. And then in addition to that, we're also going to want to add some mayonnaise, as well as some sour cream, and ketchup, and mustard. And yes, I used the spoon with the ketchup on it to get my mustard, which is not the best technique. But since I already did it, I'll do it again. And then we're also going to toss in a little bit of sweet pickle relish. And by the way, if you made our bread and butter pickles and have those in the back of your fridge, just dice those up. They would work perfect here. And then after the relish, I'm going to go ahead and give this a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Nailed it. And then we'll also do some freshly ground black pepper, as well as a nice big pinch of cayenne. Oh yeah, it's back, baby. Seriously, I get emails if I go 2 videos in a row without using cayenne. It's crazy. And yet kind of sweet. But anyway, a little bit of cayenne, and then we could add the last ingredient, the cheese. So I'm going to toss in half a pound of grated Swiss cheese. And by the way, when I said Swiss, I did the air quotes. Because I don't want you just using any old regular commercial Swiss cheese. I want you to use what I used, which you will see on the blog with the rest of the ingredients. And then what we'll do is we'll grab a normally sized wooden spoon and mix this until thoroughly combined. Oh, and in case you're wondering, no, we didn't forget the salt. There's already enough sodium in this to start a small country. But anyway, like I said, we'll take a spoon and mix this up, which is going to take a few minutes, which is why I'm going to edit this down to just a few seconds. Because let's face it, watching someone mix up a dip with a wooden spoon is just not that interesting. Although, you know what? Maybe from the side it would be more interesting. Nope, still not interesting. Hey, we tried. But anyway, we're going to keep at it until it's thoroughly mixed, at which point we can transfer that into some kind of oven-proof baking dish. And we will use the back of our spoon to kind of spread that out, pressing it down, making sure it's all evenly distributed. And then once that's been accomplished, what I'm going to do is switch to a fork, because I don't want this surface to remain smooth. I want some nooks and I want some crannies. So all I'm going to do is go over the surface with the tip of a fork to kind of roughen it up a little bit. And not only is that going to be for appearance, but it's also going to create more surface area, which means those strands of sauerkraut on the surface are going to brown up even better. And I will explain why that's important later. So we will fork that surface and fork it good. And once that's been accomplished, this is ready to bake. So let's go ahead and transfer that into the center of a 400-degree oven for about 25-30 minutes or so, or until bubbling and beautifully browned. Check it out. That looks incredible, and incredibly hot. So yes, we do have to let this cool down a little before we serve it. I'd say at least 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, if you serve it immediately, it's just going to be a little too soupy. Not to mention, to quote my friend Ralph, it'll taste like burning. Oh, and one pro tip while you're waiting for this to cool. If you put a few drops of water on a paper towel, you could easily clean off those burned-on smudges. Just makes it look a little nicer. But please be careful. If you're going to burn yourself, skip that step. But anyway, like I said, we're going to let that cool for about 15 minutes or so, at which point we can serve that up. Preferably next to some kind of pickles, and of course some bread or crackers. Obviously things like toasted rye would work perfectly. Personally, I happen to have some seeded pumpernickel crackers around, so that's what I used. And remember when I was forking the top, and I mentioned it was to increase the surface area so the sauerkraut would brown a little better? That's because there's something about browned, fermented vegetables that have the most incredibly delicious savory flavor. And I don't know chemically exactly what happens, but it is incredibly tasty. Oh yeah, you people that have had kimchi fried rice know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that little bit of brown sauerkraut is just one reason this is so good. And of course, all that delicious deli meat and half a pound of melted cheese don't hurt. So anyway, that's it, baked Reuben dip. Just an absolutely delicious and beautiful monument to temporarily not caring what we eat. Which, by the way, is why we just eat this once a year, without regrets. Repeat, no regrets. So I really do hope you give this a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.